In this video, we're going to actually spawn the enemies into our level using the system that we have set up. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to go into our spawner blueprint. Alrighty. You can also click this edit blueprint over here for whatever you have selected. Open blueprint editor. Okay, spawn enemy. We know for sure that we're connecting here. Great. Okay, so we're going to connect off of that and actually spawn the enemy. So to do that, let's drag off. And what we want to say essentially is want to spawn enemy. Oh, actually, we need to do this first. I want to declare what enemy is associated, like which type of enemy do I want to spawn right here. And in order to do that, we need to set up a variable because we do want the level designer to be able to click this and in the details see and maybe possibly select which of the enemies they want this particular spawn point to spawn. So to do that, again, you guessed it, I'm going to make a variable and I'm going to make this, let's call this enemy to spawn. Okay. We do want this to be viewable inside the details panel, so I'm just going to preemptively click that right there. And in this case, what do we want? Let's see. We want this to be a type pawn. Let's see. BP. I think as long as we're spawning a type of pawn, we should be fine. So I'm going to say pawn and then class reference. Now, the reason I'm saying class reference and not object reference is because I want to get a reference to a class that doesn't already exist in the level because I'm about to spawn it. I just want to look at a type of class. So this could be a type of enemy that you have defined. And since it doesn't exist in the level yet, we need to look at a class reference, not an object or already spawned thing. So class reference, okay, pawn enemy to spawn. And I'm just gonna drag in, get enemy to spawn right here. And if we drag off of this, we should be able to type in spawn, yeah, spawn AI from class. Okay, great. And so you may not see all the nodes that you need depending on what you drag off of. And because our pawn has the ability to run this function, then we will only see that if we drag off. So just make sure you drag off this node first. And this is referencing whichever one we select inside the details panel. And so what I want to do is to spawn the enemy, I want to print the statement, spawn enemy. And a lot of times what I'd like to do, if it's just a print string just for testing, I'll put that above there. Move this over like that. Okay, and now I can spawn the enemy, but it needs to know where to spawn from. We set our spawn volume up previously, and we want to determine a random point within the spawn volume in order to spawn the enemy. So I'm going to get a reference to this. So to do that, just click the spawn volume up here, drag it in, get a reference to this particular spawn point spawn volume. So it'll be this little volume here associated with each particular spawn point. Alrighty. And we want to convert the location of the spawn volume and return that as a essentially as a transform through which we can spawn the thing. Or I guess this would be a position through which to spawn the thing. So in XYZ. All right, so to do that, drag off here and type in, we want to get the location of this component right here. So get the starting point of this. And we also want to get the range of the volume. I'm just gonna call it get scale box extent. Now this, if you just wanted to spawn this at the location, you could just drag this in and it'll be fine. This is just a fancier way of doing this, determining a random point here. This should be fine if you just drag this in here. I'm just gonna get a little fancier. Drag over, say random point if I could spell right, random point in bounding box. Okay. It's looking for a starting location and a extent or a range. And I drag that over. So a random range within here. So it needs this in order to get this. So drag that in. Okay, so all this is saying is, let's pull this out a little bit. All right. Spawn the enemy that is determined by this variable over here, which will feed in there once we compile. And spawn this enemy at this location, determined by this spawn volume that we made up here. File, save. I do believe this should work, hopefully. Let's see, all right. Okay, so what we need to do, we click on the spawn point. We need to define which enemy to spawn. So if I click this, I'm trying to remember which one is the correct one, but whatever enemy you're looking to spawn, it's actually looking for a pawn. I believe it's one of these two things. I think this is the one I want. So let's try charger. This one, let's try a soldier. Okay. So theoretically, when I enter this trigger for each of the waves, right now it's just one, spawn the associated AI component on, or pawn associated the enemy to spawn on each of these spawn points. So if I save it, hit play. All right, so what I do here, there we go. And see, because it's spawning at a range, and I actually haven't built a navigation volume here, because it's at a range, it's spawning up higher. So maybe I do want to clamp this down a little bit. So I'm going to go back into my spawn point. Spawn volume. Go back to my viewport. And I do want to make this a lot smaller, especially this Z value up here. Let's make that 1. Pull that back down. All right. I'll save. Okay, hit play again. Okay, and I think what's happening is that this is just spawning on the floor. Put this up. Spawn volume. Make sure that we're doing this above. Okay, I think that should be good. Okay, perfect. I was already patrolling. Okay, so now that we have our things spawning, I think we can build a little bit on top of the system, but basically it works. If we have multiple enemy spawns, right? Like let's just make another one over here. We're making a new wave on this side, and we're going to duplicate these over here. Like a pincer attack. Okay, and I would keep your spawn points fairly close to your wave. And see here, maybe I'll make a new grouping folder as well. I'm gonna come up here to the top, create a new folder, call this wave 02. And we'll select these, wave 02. Oh, I can already tell just by how I duplicated it out. Make sure you have these 3 things selected here and drag these over into wave 02. But what would be even better is if you rename these according to the naming convention. Wave 02. Again, this will be wave 02, spawn 1, wave 02, spawn 2. Okay, save current. And now because we set it up this way, to go over here and say, okay, this wave trigger will spawn this wave, but I want to give it another wave. Add element. BP enemy wave 2. Okay, so now it will trigger this enemy wave. Now this enemy wave, I want to make sure that it's referencing these 2 over here. So we'll do wave 2, which we are. As long as this is why naming convention is important. Spawn 1, wave 2, spawn 2. Okay. And each of these, maybe I want this one to spawn a patrol. This one to spawn. You can already see how the system can be fairly powerful now because we were building it very modularly. Is we can quickly come in and reconfigure our waves. So if I hit play here, and we go over here, see those spawn over there, spawn over there. Oh, we're spawning oh, because this is not a do once. We can actually spawn multiple. Here, see what's happening? So we might want to make this main trigger only spawn once. So easy enough to do that. We're going to our main, we'll call this wave spawner right here. We're just going to add a do once node. So off this print string, type in do once. That means trigger this once and then never do it again. Okay, do once. For each. All right, one last test. Close out. Hit play. All right, cool. And I still think that one of the reasons why it wasn't spawning that sometimes is that it was not doing a random thing. So you can configure this, you know, if you want to make this higher or whatever, make sure it's not spawning on the floor. You could figure that out, but ultimately it should be working pretty close. You see we can enter multiple times and it's only spawning at once, which is great. Where'd the other guy go? All right. I do want to figure out why this is not working. So we'll continue this system and we'll build off of it a little bit going forward.